Hello, dog morning to you. Welcome to the good world. I'm Seth. That's Charlie. Let's see where this goes. Let's see where this goes as a new... I'm trying that as a line to start the thing. Because I was talking to Susie last week after she watched an episode. And she was like, well, I think it would be helpful if you could do like a little intro and talk about what you're going to talk about. And the problem with that is that when you're just kind of doing stream of consciousness, you don't know where your conversation's going to go. And so I need to, I needed some way to convey that. And so let's see where this goes is just kind of a nice, well, I don't know if it's nice, but it's a way to indicate that I don't know what I'm going to say. And I don't expect you to either. I'm just going to, as I do in all of these, I'm just going to sort of find my way through. Something I was thinking about, I know Charlie, something I was thinking about before I left the house today, is that, so I've been thinking this morning about what to talk about today, and, this episode will go live on Tuesday, but I'm recording it on Monday, which means I had the weekend to think about it. And not just to think about this, but also just, I had the weekend to have conversations with, I caught up with a friend and a couple of friends, and I, have had interactions and conversations with Susie, and so there's all kinds of stuff buzzing around in here, and the thought I had is, it's probably good that I have, that these recordings are sort of, delimited by my going to and from the dog park, because you may think that the reason these episodes are as long as they are is because I can't come up with things to say for longer than that, but in fact it's to spare you from having to listen to me bullshit for like hours and hours on end, because guess what skill I have? It's that one. I know, Charlie, you have so many beeps. Bullshitting, I have honed that skill. I have forged it in the fires of white male privilege, which is a world where, like, it is an environment that is all about the bullshit. It is very pro, bluster and bluff and fake it till you make it. So I guess let's sort of start here. So I was catching up with a very close friend of mine over the weekend. I'm not gonna mention her by name because I don't know if she wants me to do that. But one of the things we were talking about, she was asking me about this channel and sort of what I'm doing, and I was like, well, honestly, I feel like my experience as a straight white man who has like done a lot of harm and sort of seen the ways that all of the systems have pushed me towards being a dick. I can look at that and I think that, sort of sharing my experience and just opening up and speaking with emotional honesty about it, I think potentially, hopefully, that can be helpful to someone else. In particular, I'm kind of trying to make the show that I wish existed for me when I was younger. I don't think I've talked about this on here yet. I've tweeted about it before, but like, the term incel, involuntary celibate, is not a term that existed when I was younger, but if it existed when I was 20, I probably would have applied it to myself. I mean, I was in college surrounded by people who were having lots of sex, and I was a straight man in a world that really just constantly told me that all of my value was tied to my sexual exploits, conquests even, and that if I didn't have any successful sexual exploits, then that meant I was a failure and I didn't have any worth. And that feeling was bullshit, and I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to be the guy that women would want to be with. In addition to, I read The Game, I learned about negging, I learned all of these manipulative tactics, which, I mean, not for nothing, but like manipulating people into doing what you want is a really, really fucked up thing, and we don't really acknowledge that enough. We sort of glorify the idea of like, oh, that person is so good at getting other people to do what they want, but like, that's not good. That's very, very poisonous for all of our our lives and our social ecosystem and all of that stuff. So, I read the game. I also, I was convinced that what women really wanted were washboard abs, and so, I saw an advertisement for an ab roller, and I got an ab roller, and I saw an advertisement for an ab doer, and I got an ab doer, and I saw an advertisement for an ab master, and I got an ab master. I had all three of those things, and I have never had anything smaller than a keg. I have always, I bellied, let's put it that way. But, I was young and I didn't know, and I was in a cultural environment that really told me, like, it's a matter of will and perseverance and manipulation, and whatever else to get women to do what you want, and then you can be successful. And nothing was working. Right? I made it into my 20s. I had a first kiss and a couple of other things, and I've mentioned in the past some other things that were, I thought were me succeeding, and that were actually me, like, really deeply harming people I cared about, and, like, crossing boundaries that I assumed were imaginary because that's the cultural environment I was in. And it's taken me a while to realize it, but, there are sort of two pieces of advice for getting women, which is, honestly, just as a phrase, is, like, terrible, because that's not how consensual activity should be thought of anyway. But the two pieces of advice that I think are worthwhile, and, you maybe need to sort of change the framing of them. But one is, confidence is important, and two is be yourself. And both of those things were really, really hard for me when I was younger, because I didn't know who myself was, right? Like, be yourself. What does that even mean? Who is myself? How am I supposed to know what that is? And I didn't really think about it at the time, but, like, that was an indication that I was really missing something inside myself that the world could not fix for me. And I've mentioned this before, but, I got really into theater and acting. I was effectively, like, professionally trained as an actor from age, 12 or 13 to age 21. And I did that because I liked not having to be myself, because I didn't know who I was. I could throw myself into a character, and I would often, like, take on the traits of the character. I remember sophomore year of college, I was playing a character who was a total asshole, and I started kind of being an asshole to my friends, because I didn't know who I was, and I would just take on these characters. And I would view my interactions with other people to some extent as a way to sort of learn about people, so I could incorporate that into my acting. It was really everything that I was doing, and I now realize much, much later that all I was doing was trying to hide, trying to avoid myself, because I was so afraid of, whether it's failure or judgment, or just harsh criticism. I was afraid of figuring out who I was, because I was afraid that I wouldn't be enough. Whatever I was, whoever I was, wouldn't be enough. And so I filled that hole with acting, and I filled that hole with exercise equipment that I never used, and I filled that hole with books like The Game and efforts to sort of figure out how to project confidence. And so that sort of brings me to the other part. So I mentioned be yourself, and project confidence. And the problem with, well, it's not project confidence, it's be confident. And the problem with be confident is that's not a thing, that's not a switch you can flip. But it is a thing you can mimic, and that's where a lot of the problem comes in. And that's actually where a lot of the problem with straight white men in our culture comes in. It's not, I don't think the problem is straight white men. I think the problem is the culture that shapes and trains straight white men to be who we are, because that's what we're told, be confident. But we're not actually given a foundation for that confidence. We're just told be confident. And so we end up acting confident. And a really important point that my friend made in this conversation over the weekend was that men in our society lack resilience, which means we struggle to bounce back from failure because we struggle to process failure. And, you know, if you think about it for just a minute, I mean, how often are we taught failure's not an option, you can't fail? And especially the more confident we are, the more people tell us you can't fail. And, you know, the higher the stakes get, especially in the business world where people are putting huge amounts of their wealth on a bet in your ability to succeed, or whether it's your own personal happiness in trying to find someone to love you, failure, we are just taught, is not an option. And I thought it was a really interesting point because she, as a woman, has been taught to expect to fail and you know, figure out how to manage it. And the thing is that being a human means failing a lot, because the only way you learn is by failing. And you know, you learn by failing, you improve by learning. And when we are terrified of failure, which is what a lot of us are, because we're told that failure is the worst thing that can happen to us, as opposed to just a normal part of the learning process, then we deny that failure even exists, and we get extremely defensive. And so this also ties back to some of the other stuff I've talked about in previous episodes, but like, you know, you get people who are not qualified to do things, or who are just regular people, insisting on their own greatness, because anything short of superiority and supremacy feels like failure, and failure is the worst fucking thing we can imagine. And so it's no, I didn't fail, you caused me to fail, it's your fault, I can't fail. And so that is what happens when our confidence is just a projection, as opposed to something that comes from within. And so I again want to come back to this idea of be yourself and be confident. What I have eventually realized, and it's taken me 20 years, and I wish that someone had told me this when I was a teenager, is that confidence comes from knowing yourself. It comes from figuring out the parts of you that you like, that you genuinely enjoy, like, appreciate, value, and that you want to share with other people. It's not about what's going to get a good reaction. It's not about avoiding judgment. And that's definitely hard, and it's harder when you're younger, when, like, the judgment of your peers... I mean, look, I'm almost 39. The judgment of my peers still matters to me. It really mattered to me when I was a teenager and a 20-something. And so it's not like the easiest thing to overcome. But to the extent that you can really figure out what you like inside, who you are inside, then the confidence will follow from that, because you genuinely will care less what other people think if you can learn to like yourself. And you will find communities that like you for who you are. And that doesn't mean, you know, another thing I did a lot of when I was young, I was like, I keep hearing I'm supposed to just be a nice guy. Why can't I get any women? I'm such a nice guy. I'm funny, whatever. And that's because what I was trying to do was adopt a personality trait for the purpose of achieving a goal that was based in manipulating other people. And you actually can't manipulate other people very well. You can, but it is technically possible to do, but it does a lot of harm, and it's going to come back on you sooner or later. And you'll feel it sooner or later, or you'll spend your life running from it. I wouldn't recommend either of those things. Sorry, bit of a confusion with this gentleman at the stop sign, but we're good. So it is not about trying to figure out what traits other people will like and then enacting them. It's certainly not about projecting confidence, because that's confidence that you don't have anyway, because that's just covering up your own bullshit. Faking it till you make it is just running from your own bullshit. All of us are faking it on some level, and the really talented people and the really smart people I've met are the ones who admit that they are faking it on some level and spend their time and their energy trying to figure out how to navigate a world in which everyone is faking it and sort of how to do their best. They're not trying to dominate other people. They're just trying to do their best. And that's all you can do. All you can do is do your best. But instead of doing your best to get other people to like you, just do your best to figure out what you like. Figure out what are the things that appeal to you, what are the things that don't appeal to you. Try to release judgment of the things that don't appeal to you, but just, find the things that you like and be the person that you would like to spend time with. And the confidence will follow from that. And, the truth is, once you know who you are and know how to be yourself, and it's not an instantaneous thing, it's certainly not an overnight thing, it takes time, and it takes, difficult thinking. I know Charlie's losing his mind. We are pulling into the dog park driveway, obviously. Once you know who you are, the confidence will follow, and then the appreciation from other people will follow. But as soon as you make it about the goal of what you will get from other people, you lose the thread. It has to be about your own personal growth. And I know that's a big leap of faith, and you're sort of taking a big long walk out there, but that's becoming comfortable with yourself is the only way you can get to a point that other people will really be comfortable with you. That seems like a great moment to take it from a couch, Charlie. All right, we just pulled into the dog park. My dog is losing his mind. We'll be back in a bit. I know, Beeps. I know, you're fine. Hello, this is just a quick note to remind you that if you are enjoying what you are seeing, and you want to see more of this content and you don't want to miss a new video when it comes out, you can click the subscribe button below. Also, if you think more people should see it, you can click the like button, and then I think algorithms will make it more I actually understand algorithms, but I don't understand the specifics of the YouTube algorithm. And share with your friends if you think that this is a thing that is worth sharing. And if you don't, well, sorry. I'm just out here doing me. Okie doke. Now back to our program. Hi, welcome back to the good world. I'm Seth, that's Charlie. Charlie had a great time at the dog park. There were many good dogs there. There were some very small dogs, which are some of Charlie's favorite things. There were also some very large dogs, which are also some of Charlie's favorite things. He really enjoys dogs that have a substantial size difference from him. He also really likes horses. I've maybe mentioned this before, but he'll run up to horses and just sort of stand there and beep at them. And I know that inside he's like, "What kind of dog am you?" Just like trying to understand the horse. Anyway, so let's come back to where we were. So, I was talking about the importance of figuring out who you are and finding yourself, and I think our culture places so much emphasis on especially in America, we place so much emphasis on like careerism and professions, right? We say, what do you want to be when you grow up? We don't say, who do you want to be when you grow up? And the truth is, the second one of those things is a much more important question. Who do you want to be? I would also say that, increasingly, especially just across my own lifetime, career changes have become really common. I know plenty of people who have gone through multiple careers. This, to whatever extent this is going to turn into a career for me, is depending on how you want to measure it. I don't know. It could be like my fourth or fifth. So as I mentioned, I grew up doing very professional theater, but even if you don't count that, I had a stint working professionally. I mean, backstage, I wasn't doing a whole lot of professional acting, but I was involved in professional theater, working backstage. And then I, spent a summer as an intern for a minor league baseball team, launching t-shirts from a pressure cannon. You can decide whether or not you want to count that, but you can definitely count the part of my career where I worked in economic consulting, because I did that for 2.5 years, and you can decide whether or not you want to count wow, big backup at this turn. Gonna go around it. You can decide whether or not you want to count the 2 years I spent in grad school as being part of an academic career. I don't know. But at a minimum, you can probably count those things, and then also the 8 years I spent working in political data. And now I'm not doing any of those things. Now I'm doing this. And we'll see whether it becomes sustaining. But point being, what do you want to be when you grow up as it pertains to professions is just not, it is such a good example of how we are trained to think about things, but it is actually disconnected from the reality of what life is like when you actually grow up. I think it also, there's an extent that it also implies knowing what you want to be when you grow up. And part of the reason I have bounced from career to career is I have tried different things and found them unsatisfying. And this actually connects very nicely back to this question of failure and certainty, and just sort of like having a plan and pushing forward with the plan. And as I said, failure is part of learning, but more importantly, we need to accept from the outset the idea that we won't know something until we have at least started exploring it. You don't know if you will enjoy being a lawyer or an actor or a veterinarian or whatever until you start trying to be a lawyer or an actor or a veterinarian. And when we expect people to know things about what they will like in advance, that's a really big problem, because boy, there's a whole lot of social psychology research about how bad people are at predicting what they will and will not enjoy, and predicting the future about anything in general, but also even about themselves. People frequently think that they will enjoy a certain situation, get into that situation, and find they don't enjoy it. And I know that's happened to me many times in my life. And so it's really important to accept our own uncertainty about our future, and not just to accept it, but actually to embrace it as a means of learning about ourselves and learning about the world, and sort of coming to understand who we are and how we fit into everything. And so that is the thing that I wish I understood at a younger age, is that it's not about picking the image that you want to present to the world and relentlessly pursuing that image, because all that's ever going to do is make you unhappy. It's going to make you, you might have moments of happiness here and there. You may even have some prolonged ones, but ultimately you are always going to be afraid that someone is going to uncover the truth about you. You are, in the words of my dad, I mentioned, the best advice he ever gave me, I mentioned on a show last week. I think last week, he, goes into work every day to his very high-powered law job and thinks today is the day I will be revealed for the fraud that I am. But he can at least recognize that if everything you have is the impression and the reputation that you are trying to put out into the world, then you are going to constantly be afraid of truth. And I gotta tell you, just based on my own experience, being in a position where the truth is a threat to you is a really dangerous position. And it is one that you will never be able to escape until you can stop and welcome the truth with open arms. And if you want to see my version of what that looks like, you can go back and look at the episode I did about inherited trauma. It's a hard episode to watch, and so I don't blame you if you don't want to watch it. But I have spent a lot of time running from multiple truths in my life, and I have gotten to a point where I can accept them as part of my own truth, and I can live a happier life, and hopefully one where I can help other people find a little peace and happiness for themselves. But I could not have done that if I was constantly running from the truth. I could not have done that if what I was concerned about was creating a certain impression, getting other people to do certain things, shaping a story, as opposed to just discovering my own story as it was revealed to me. And so that is my like greatest advice that I can give to anyone is, instead of trying to figure out how to get women to like you, or how to get people to like you, or how to get people to give you respect, just take the time to figure out who you are. Try things, figure out what you like, figure out what you don't like, figure out a way to get past your desire to judge other people and to rank yourself in accordance with other people, because that's all judgment is. Judgment isn't about the thing the other person is doing is bad. Judgment is about, I want to feel better than someone. Here's a person who I can judge because I'm not doing the bad thing that they're doing. We don't bother thinking about what got them there. The place that I have gotten to at this point, honestly, is the people who do things that are harmful, or particularly the people who do things that I've worked hard to get past and overcome for myself. Things like fighting for status, things like trying to sort of give an impression of impressiveness. I think of all the times I went into business meetings dressed up in a suit, which was a costume for me. I look at people, and that's not to say you can't be a person who wears a suit. For some people, that really is home. It wasn't for me, and I was trying to make it that. But I look at people who are trapped in the story they think they are supposed to tell, and who are doing everything in their power to convince the world that to go along with that story. And you hear a lot of credentials thrown around with that, right? I went to Harvard Law School. Everyone should listen to me. I went to Yale. I went to Wesleyan, right? Like all of the defensiveness about pushing the narrative that we think we're supposed to push for our own superiority and dominance, all of that stuff is so poisonous. But I look at the people who are doing it, and at this point, I don't judge them. I feel deeply sorry for them. I feel pity, because I have been there and I know what it feels like, and it feels terrible, and it feels like there's not a way out of it. It feels like all you can do is keep on digging in further. But when you can take the time to just accept that some of the ideas you've internalized might be bullshit, you can start going through those ideas and picking apart the ones that ring true for you and the ones that don't. And in my experience, I've done that not just professionally, but I've had to spend the last 10 or so years of my life doing it with my life. I don't know how much of the details I've gotten into this, but like in 2011, I was in grad school, and I came home for Thanksgiving, and found out that my parents were getting divorced. I was 29 years old. When you live through 29 years of your parents being married, you think that your parents have a happy marriage, and you think that your family is happy. And what I have come to realize through a lot of therapy and a lot of conversations and a lot of difficult, internally conflicting thoughts, is that we weren't happy. We just hid our unhappiness, not just from the world outside, but to a large extent we hid it from ourselves. I really thought that the way that I grew up was a good example of what a happy family looks like. And so having to spend the last 10 years or so unpacking that has meant really going through a whole lot of memories from my childhood, and just a whole lot of beliefs and narratives that I've internalized, and taking them apart one by one and sort of holding them up and looking and saying, is this true, or is this a bullshit narrative? And the answer is a mix. And even within a single thing, usually there is some truth and there is some bullshit. But we can't do that if all we are doing is doubling down and doubling down and doubling down, and refusing to accept our own humanity, our own fallibility, and our own capacity for imperfection, because imperfection is what enables us to grow and to learn and to become better, and to figure out who we really are, and to figure out how to be happy, and to figure out how to love ourselves. And it's only once we do that that we can start bringing our love for ourselves to other people. That's the only way to make any of this better. You're not gonna fight your way into love. You're not gonna bullshit your way into love. The only way you can find love is by learning to love yourself, and then the love that you get from the people around you will follow. That's just, and it can't be about, there is no way to love yourself in order to get the love from the other people. Loving yourself is it's a process. It takes time, it takes practice, it takes learning, but you get a little better at it more or less every day. You know, the arc of anything, I mean, I'm a statistician, so I think about trend lines, right? And the trend line of anything is never, I guess from your perspective, it starts over here. It's never a straight line up, right? It's herky-jerky, and some days it's better, and some days it's worse, but as long as the overall trend is up, you're going to be in good shape. And so that's a big part of why I have my meditation practice that I have taken on, but it also is something that I sort of learned by doing without even realizing I was doing it, but I could have done it a whole lot earlier in my life if I had really understood it. Another thing that connects to that I think is sort of worth sharing for specific reasons today is, you know, so I talk about this trend line. Habits are things that take time and that take practice. You're not going to build a new habit just as you're not going to build the ability to love yourself over a single day. But you start one day and you keep practicing, and when you fail to keep up the routine one day, you just do it again the next day. And you know what? If you fail for a few days, you don't let that get you down. You don't let it. More importantly, you don't let the fact that you failed a few days in a row become an excuse to keep failing. And you just try again. And so I'll give you an example. I got an elliptical a couple months ago because I need more exercise in my life, and I had gotten pretty good at using it. And then I hit a really big depression in February, and I stopped. And I stopped and didn't really start again. And a couple weeks ago, so I listened to an audiobook. I don't remember the name of it, and I think I've mentioned it before and said I was going to put it in the description and didn't, so today I'll try to remember to do it. But it's a book about habit formation, and what I started doing was a couple weeks ago, every morning when I wake up and go and make myself coffee and breakfast, before I make coffee and breakfast, I put on workout clothes. I haven't been doing anything with them. I've just been putting them on, making a habit of putting on the exercise clothes. And today, for the first time in about 2 months, I got on the elliptical. I worked out for 7 minutes. It wasn't a hardcore exercise, but you know what? If I can work out every day this week for 7 minutes as part of my morning routine, then maybe next week it'll be 10 minutes, and the week after that it'll go up. And that's how habits are formed. They are not formed by deciding something and just trying to embrace a narrative. They are formed through slow, steady practice. And so getting to know yourself is not a thing that you can just decide one day. It's a thing that takes time, it's a thing that takes work, and it's a thing that takes practice. But the rewards at the end of it are so worth it, and you can be so much happier than this world wants to make you. Our system is trying to turn you into a cog. Our system is trying to get you to conform, and you don't have to do that. But finding an alternative way of conforming is that's also not conforming. You can figure out who you are, and you can love yourself for who you are, because who you are is great. I know that it is. Somewhere in there, no matter how much you've been hurt, and no matter how much you've hurt other people, you have within you the capacity to love yourself, and to love other people, and to love this absolutely amazing world that we've inherited. And so I hope that today's video can help you do that a little bit. Charlie and I are home. Charlie is very excited to go inside and see Susie, so I'm going to take him and we're going to do that, and we'll be back in a minute. Okay, bye. Please like and subscribe. 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 Hello and welcome back to the good world. Just had a lovely lunch. Made myself a sandwich. You're gonna get to see a little sneak clip of the inside of my fridge a little later at the end of this, but I won't spoil the surprise for you any more than that. So I want to talk a little bit more about I want to kind of pivot from a theme that I was talking about, because I was talking about, exploring and sort of getting to know yourself and learning to love yourself, and the importance of doing that. Really, really important for figuring out how to live a life where you don't feel like you are constantly on the run from the truth, or on the run from your own feelings, or any of the things that might mess with your ability to live in peace and happiness, because it's all any of us want is to just not have to fight so much. So there's we're gonna get just a little bit religious, spiritual-ish for a moment, because something that I've been thinking about across the weekend, and just something I've been thinking about a lot in general lately, honestly, is a phrase that Jesus said when he was talking about the kingdom of God. And if you've been watching this channel, you'll know that I'm Jewish, so I don't claim to have any authority over Christian theology or Christian text or any of that. But I do find the philosophy of Jesus to be extremely compelling, and it resonates deeply with me. And I think there is a lot in it that is a key to a better world. I think a lot of that message has gotten lost across the 2,000 years since he said those things. But in particular, he talks a lot about the kingdom of God. One thing you'll hear a lot is like, it is easier for a camel to fit through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God, which is certainly something that a lot of Christian churches seem to just pretend he never said. So that's fine. But he also talks a fair amount about the kingdom of God is among you. The kingdom of God is already here. I don't have exact words at my disposal in any way. They're just a translation of Greek or Latin, which are themselves then a translation of Aramaic. So it's not like the precise words matter in English matter as much as the underlying concept. But the kingdom of God is already here. The kingdom of God is already among you. And he also says that when you enter the kingdom of God, it won't be, there's not some magic bolt of lightning, no, giant bearded guy coming down from the sky to welcome you. It's just one day suddenly you'll realize that actually the kingdom of God is here and you've been there all along. And that is how I feel about the world. That is honestly the premise of the good world, is just that we already have it, right? The kingdom of God is all around us. Nature is incredible. The world is incredible. And we, unlike any other animal, have an ability to understand and explore and appreciate it. We are, as far as we know, we are unique among living organisms on the planet Earth in our ability to do that. And so much of our culture is, as I've been talking about, is sort of built around, building yourself a narrative, forcing your narrative out there, and just, bullshitting and blustering and just keep moving forward and never stop to think. And if you stop to think and stop to really look at the things that you're doing, and also look at the world around you, the things around us are so much bigger than we are. I mentioned earlier that in 2011, my parents got divorced, and that was a really hard time for me. I was in grad school. I did not enjoy grad school. Having to read some really, really dry, really boring, really technical academic literature is hard for anybody, but especially for someone with severe ADHD. And so I was doing it, but it was taking all of my time to just get through the things I needed to read. And I was not happy with where my life was. I didn't really know where I wanted it to go. And I was also, suddenly my entire family life got turned upside down. And so it was really hard. I got super, super depressed. I ate, my go-to not every day, but there were a lot of days that I would go to the store and I would get a pint of cookie dough ice cream and a thing of 4 Cadbury eggs, and I would come home and I would eat all of it, because all of those are things with like a close connection to my feelings of childhood, and like those are comfort food for me for sure. But one of the things I did that didn't necessarily fully get me out of that, but that helped to sort of wake me a little. And this is definitely about to be an example of what inherited wealth and privilege can get you. But spring break came along, and while my students were going off to, I don't know, Cancun or Tijuana or wherever they were going, I went to Alaska. And I specifically went to Bettles, Alaska, which is inside the Arctic Circle. It's a town of like 50 people. I went there because I wanted to see the Northern Lights, and I wanted to feel small because my problems felt so overwhelming that I wanted some perspective. And I don't know, that may be as close as I have come to seeing the face of God. Like, not only did I saw the Northern Lights. Those were really cool. A thing that honestly astounded me even more than the Northern Lights was this area called the Arrowgetch Peaks. They're in the Brooks Mountain Range, which is in the northern part of Alaska. It's the Continental Divide, so water on the northern side of the Brooks Range flows to the Arctic. On the southern side, it flows down and out to the Pacific. Continental Divide. Also, that's when I learned what the Continental Divide means. It's where on the continent water goes to different outlets. But the Arrowgetch Peaks are just these razor sharp, gigantic, intimidating, snow and ice covered, like, razors of granite. And, you know, life can find a way in most places, but it's pretty tough for life to find a way there. And they are so old. They're so much older than us. They're so much bigger than us. And it just, for a moment, it just took me out of myself, and I was able to just sort of look at and appreciate just, holy fucking shit. Look at this thing that is here that I've never heard of, that is astonishing, and that fills me simultaneously with a sense of wonder, a little bit of a sense of fear, but not an imminent fear, but more just a fear of the power of nature, the power of God. And that was, I would say, the start of sort of coming out of that depression. And it is an idea that I have returned to. I haven't been back to Alaska, but I know that anytime I'm feeling really crappy, getting out into nature and seeing things that remind me just how much bigger all of creation is than me, is really helpful for some perspective and gets me out of the space of thinking about my own problems, whether I've inherited them or created them. And this is what the kingdom of God is already among us means, right? We are surrounded by absolute wonders in every direction. Something as huge as the Arrowgetch Peaks, something as small as the little bits of yeast that make sourdough that you can't even see with your eye. But, you know, you grow enough of them, you grow a little colony, and you manage a teeny tiny society, and you make that into something delicious. And those microbes have been doing that for longer than humans have been able to write down the things we believe in. And we sit here and we fight over our status and our reputation, and we fight to suppress someone else's version of the truth with the version of the truth we want to believe in, so that for the minutes that we are here in God's wonderful creation, we can feel a little bit superior to a couple other people. And what does that get us? What value does that really bring to us? We are in the kingdom of God, and we are fighting over who will get to feel slightly better than another person for a minute. We're going to be gone in, you know, to us it feels like a long time, but in the eyes of the universe, it's a blink. And even the most remembered people will be forgotten, right? Even the grandest ruins are going to crumble into dust. And most of the names from thousands of years ago are gone. Most of our names today will be gone in 10,000 years. And even the ones that are still gone, or sorry, that are not gone, that are still there, will be gone not a whole lot longer. And then the world, the entire planet, will just keep going for millions and millions of years. We are just here for a moment, and we are in literal paradise. And instead of stopping and breathing and appreciating it, we are trying to dominate it, dominate each other, and for what? For a moment of overcoming a little bit of fear that we're not the thing we think we're supposed to be. You're not supposed to be anything. Just give up on trying to be what you think you're supposed to be. Because you don't know. All you're supposed to be is who you are. And if you don't know that, and you probably don't, because most of us don't, I'm still learning all the time who I am. But if you don't know who you are, start learning. Just sit by yourself. Think about the thoughts that come into your head. Take a walk in nature. See what catches your attention. And if you don't get much out of it today, then try it again. Doesn't even have to be tomorrow. Try it again in a couple days. And just keep practicing that. Keep exploring. The moment you hit the thought of, I know everything I need to know, that is a death. Right? That is the death of your wonder, the death of your curiosity, and ultimately the death of your knowledge. Because the moment you say, I know everything I need to know, the moment you stop learning. And the truth is, you don't know everything you need to know. You will never know everything you need to know. There are so many people in industries where I've worked, in the tech industry and in political data and data writ large, and just all over the place. A lot of the people who have the most influence in our society are the people who are least curious and most insistent that they know things. And so when they end up getting proven wrong, they refuse to admit it, and they just take it out on other people, and they just kind of keep bullying their way through. And guess what? They're never happy, right? There's always someone just above them in status, and they're just going to keep fighting for status. If all you care about is hopping over the person who is one level above you in status, you're always going to be trying to hop over another person. You're always going to be competing. You're always going to be fighting. You're never going to be able to just exist and just enjoy and appreciate and be comfortable with who you are. And the kingdom of God is already here. It's all around you. It's everywhere. And it is astonishing if you will get out of your own head and get over your bullshit and stop trying to do the things that other people are telling you you're supposed to do to be happy, because those people are wrong, because they're not happy. They're just telling you because they want you to be as miserable as they are. Stop doing that and start appreciating. And you can be better. And once you can be better, you can turn towards other people and help them be better and show them the path. Because that's all it is. It's a path to walk on, and we all have our own. And we need to discover it. It is literally impossible to know where the path is going to take us before we get there. So we might as well enjoy the journey. Okay. Gonna do some meditation, which is a really nice way to check in with yourself and sort of get to know yourself a little better, and to calm those parts of your brain that are telling you to fight each other and are telling you to seek status and all of that nonsense. No, I don't want volume at 25%. I want it at all percent. All right, well, I guess we'll see what happens. Okay. Let's do the spiel. Gonna do the spiel. 10-minute meditation. This bell's gonna happen. 10 minutes later, it's gonna happen again. In between, I am going to sit here with my eyes closed and my hands in my lap, and I am going to just concentrate on my breath. And as I breathe in, I'm gonna think I follow my breath all the way in, And I'm going to actually pay attention to it all the way in. And then as I breathe out, I'm going to think I follow my breath all the way out. And, excuse me, lunch, gas, you know how it is. If you know me or you have seen this before, that is not the first time I have burped, especially for a post-lunch meditation. Follow my breath all the way in, I follow my breath all the way out. And hey, guess what? If you do this with me, your mind is going to wander, and that's fine. That's part of the practice. And the practice is not about keeping the focus. The practice is about noticing when it goes away and bringing it back. And so don't get angry at yourself. Don't get upset at yourself if your mind wanders, because it will. And especially if you're starting out, your mind's going to wander a lot. But the more times, there's a story I read, this is a good example, where someone, I believe it was in the book Why Buddhism is True, and I don't remember the name of the author, so I apologize for that. I'm going to need to do some links down in the description box. But the author is talking about being at a retreat and talking to a monk / meditation master, and he says, I keep catching myself with my mind wandering. What do I do? And the monk says, oh, you're catching yourself. That's good. And the guy's like, no, but I want that to happen less. And the monk is like, no, that's good. You need to catch yourself. That's how it works. It doesn't work by your mind never wandering, because that's impossible, because that's just not how brains work. It works when you notice that your mind is wandering and you catch it, and you get better at catching, instead of maybe in the beginning your mind goes all the way over here and does a whole big long thing, and eventually you're like, oh, there it is, and you bring it back. And then maybe next time you get it just when it's here and it comes back. And eventually you just get better at catching your mind wandering and just bringing it gently back. So that's what you do. The other thing I generally say is that if you are watching this, if you are in a position to meditate with me, I would invite and encourage you to do so. I think it is lovely when we can do that together. But also, if you can't, that's okay. If you're at work or if you're driving, first off, I've sort of implied this but haven't said it. If you're driving, don't look at the phone. Put the phone down. If you want to have the audio on in your car, great. But please don't watch this video while driving. But if you are listening to this video while driving, if you're doing anything, if for whatever reason you can't or don't want to join me in meditating, totally fine. But I would encourage you to let these 10 minutes pass and just try to be mindful in whatever you're doing. If you're cooking, there's a lovely thing that I read it was on the Plum Village Monastery website, I think. It was a dishwashing meditation. And it said, when you wash the dishes, you don't need to think, just be in here and just wash your hands. Watch your hands. They know what they're doing. They don't need you to tell them. Just sit and enjoy what your hands are doing because they know what they're doing. So if you're cooking or doing something with your hands, just enjoy the show that your hands are putting on for you. But for whatever you're doing, 10 minutes of peace and quiet and silence is just a nice thing that we don't get a whole lot of in our notification-heavy society. Okay, so yeah, I think we're good to go. So I'm going to get this started, and I will see you again in 10 minutes and 15 seconds, 14 seconds, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, etc. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed 10 minutes of quiet contemplation, meditation, whatever you want to do. See you soon. Oh, I feel very refreshed. Okay, well, I got some stuff to do around the house. I should also, quick housekeeping note. Susie and I are moving next month, so I think there's no reason for me to be doing 5 episodes a week at this point, especially because there are not yet enough viewers to sustain that, which is fine. So I'm going to scale back to just 3 episodes a week for the next few weeks until we move, probably also once we move for a little while. Get my bearings, pack up, house, etc. But I'll still be here 3 times a week, and the good news is you don't even need me if you're here for the meditation. You don't even need me for that. I use the Insight Timer app, which is free. It does have a bunch of paid features that it is entirely up to you whether you want to use. But the timer aspect of it is a free feature, and I really like it. It is the main thing that I use, and so I would recommend it. I am a subscriber, honestly, less because I use the paid features and more because I use the free features so much that I feel that I should contribute to the work that they're doing. But you can make your own decisions about that. Anyway, yeah, that's what that is. Okay, wow, this is a long clip. We're getting over half an hour. Uh-oh, I hope it doesn't cut off. That happens sometimes when things get over half an hour. Great. Have a lovely rest of your day. Okay, bye. I just want to give you a sense of what life is like here at home. So I'm making myself a sandwich for lunch, and I want some mustard. And so I reach for this. Wait a minute. I know it says that's mustard, but that is salad dressing. Okay. Oh, good news. I found some mustard. Wait a minute. That's not mustard. That's tahini. Where can I find mustard? Oh, here, in this honey jar. That's where the mustard is. This is my life in my house. I love you, Susie. Quick update. Turns out I was wrong. This is not mustard. This is almond butter. This, unlike the tahini, this one is actually mustard. So good news, I have mustard.